statements to assess the creditworthiness and eligibility for loan. Financial Statement Analyzer. Perform 360-degree analysis of financial statement of borrowers. IDR Analyzer. Gives you the visibility of your borrower's financial know-how. GSER Analyzer. Analyzes the raw data available on GSTN server and gives insights on the various sale and purchase transactions to the lender. Digital lending software. Platform originate loans and is powered by SCORME APIs for determining loan eligibility using analysis across financial statements. Credit monitoring. Highly flexible and scalable software, enabling the lender to analyze large volumes of data as per requirements. SCORME, a leading fintech company in India. Get in touch to know more.
SCORME Solutions and Resurgent India presents virtual session on navigating and neutralizing seasonal cyber frauds in digital lending. Moderator Mr. Praveen Khanna, Vice President, SCORME Solutions. Eminent Speaker Dr. Prateek Ghosh, VP Digital Transformation, SCS Tech. Mr. Siprasad Shankar, CTO, Deceml. Mr. Varun Grover, BU Head, M-Filterit.
Hello and a very warm welcome to our esteemed panelists and our audience today on this pertinent and a very contemporary session about navigating and neutralizing cyber frauds in digital lending. My name is Praveen Khanna, and on behalf of SCORME and Resurgent India, it will be my privilege to be your host today. We are joined today by an esteemed panel of members from the fintech and the technology industry, and it will be our honor to learn from their deep domain experience and their thoughts on this very important subject of cyber fraud. Now, before I invite the panelists to share their views, just a few highlights on the significance of cybersecurity, especially from an India standpoint. Now, digital banking and fintech is increasingly becoming omnipresent, right from wealth management, insurance, payments, and of course, lending. India today has the third largest number of fintechs globally after China and US, and the highest adoption rate at 87% as compared to a global average of 64%. There are net 700 million users who are accessing internet via mobile in India, estimated to reach almost 1.5 billion by 2040. Digital transactions will touch 72% by 2025, or in terms of the total transactions, and paper transactions will actually come down to only 28%. 52% of India's adult population is today digitally active, and therefore lending via fintechs is actually exceeding that, which is why the paper-based transactions. So lending via fintechs is today at 36%, commanding a larger share as compared to 24% for NBFCs and 22% for banks. Now, from the first phase of digitization in financial services via the opening of the Jan Dhan accounts to the second phase via UPI, I believe we are now in the third phase, and this is being led by digitization in lending. So you now have the emergence of neobanks, the emergence of the account aggregator model, and the upcoming OCEN and the ONDC network. Another pleasing feature has been the rural internet growth, which itself has been growing at a 30% CAGR over the last 5 years. The account aggregator model itself is getting adopted almost 28% on a week-on-week basis. India's digital lending market, which was worth USD 270 billion in 2022, is expected to reach almost 1.3 trillion by the end of this decade. So digital consumer economy is also increasing. It's expected to reach USD 800 billion in 2030, which is a 10x growth from 90 billion in 2020. So also as per the recent Experian and Equifax reports, there's rapid evolution of the regulatory framework with several interesting trends. There's been a 40% drop in the manual KYC as compared to digital KYC. There's 85% reduction in costs and adoption of eKYC via manual KYCs. There's 40% of lending now that's happening via digital channels. And this is being led up to the year 2027. Of course, every new age, and this being the digital age, brings new challenges. As of now, as we know, trust is at the core of any banking industry. According to a recent survey by the FinTech Association of Consumer Empowerment and Center for Financial Inclusion, the top 3 risks being faced by the digital lending industry include unlawful FinTech lenders, followed by cyber risks and data privacy risks. The RBI Working Group on Digital Lending has observed that out of 1,100 digital lending apps, 600 today are fraudulent. As per the RBI, in financial year 2023, total number of fraud cases in banking system were almost 13,530, which is a very, very alarming number. This is almost 49% or 6,659 cases were in digital payments itself. So those are the kind of challenges that we are facing. So also to enunciate some of the costs associated with cyber attacks, the volume of financial crimes reported in financial year 2021 was INR 2.62 lakhs, which has now gone to 6.94 lakhs in 2022. Domestic payment frauds have also been reported regularly, and that has risen to almost 2,537 crores in the financial year 2023. So we face significant risk. We've all seen and read about the ransomware attack on AIMS in November last year, which led to loss of personal data, and the servers were down. So you can imagine the kind of challenges that patients themselves were facing. So we've got a very, very esteemed group today. First up, I'd like to invite Mr. Sai Prasad Shankar. Sai is the CTO of Decimal, a micro investing app that enables young Indians to auto-invest their spare change from online transactions into mutual funds or fixed income returns. Sai Prasad has a master's in computer application. Sai Prasad is also spearheading development of Decimal app on Flutter and a nascent platform like Decimal itself that has helped him and his team create a hybrid app that performs both on Android and iOS. He's excited to drive the evolution of this app and reiterates the importance of investing small amounts consistently at every stage of user interaction. So Sai, I'd like to ask you first, following the introduction of the Data Protection Bill, what new regulatory and compliance hurdles are fintech firms facing with respect to data protection and privacy? Sai, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Praveen. Glad to be here with everyone. Firstly, let's put into context to what the bill actually is going to talk about for the larger audience. So the latest version of this data protection bill, they're calling it the DPDP, that's the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, right? And this deals with regulation mainly across how we access, store, process, and transfer personal data, right? And now this becomes a hurdle for all fintechs, right? Some of the most important hurdles that I see are data localization. The bill sort of speaks about ensuring that most of your data lies within the Indian geography or whatever geography is permissible as per the bill, right? So this is going to highly affect the cloud implementation of a lot of fintechs as of today. So they would have to localize their data. Another very important point that you mentioned was that we're moving slowly to a consent-based mechanism, wherein it's going to be very important that a very clear and upfront consent is provided to users for accessing their data, storing their data. And as we know, right, the account aggregator framework is spearheading this entire movement. So it is going to be all the more essential that fintechs pick up on this particular trend as soon as possible, right? And lastly, what the bill also talks about is having sort of regulatory auditors that ensure the adherence to this bill, to say the least. So these are some of the hurdles that I foresee, as a part of this bill implementation.
Any other privacy concerns that you foresee? What kind of challenges will firms face from a privacy standpoint?
From a privacy standpoint, of course, the implementation of certain latest trends or technologies with respect to how data is stored in general, right? Like that is going to take a new whole relook at, right? We'll have to relook at that entire strategy, ensure that we're on the latest level of encryptions with respect to how data is stored. There's going to be a lot of rework, and it's in most fintechs' favors to jump on this bandwagon today, right away, and start moving in that direction. To ensure that they don't fall into any issues going forward.
And have you faced any personal challenges post the data protection bill? How are you encountering those kind of challenges? Especially from a adherence standpoint, because there is a cost and effort that's associated with it.
Yes, definitely. So how that works is that definitely follows, if you have strict, at least at Decimal, we follow very strict procedure and processes in place, right from risk assessment to say sort of incident reporting. There are certain processes that we follow, right? And there are there too. It also involves around ensuring that all of our employees are aware about the latest trends. So employee trainings, security trainings is something that we take very seriously at Decimal, and ensure that people are aware of what they can expect, because these trends keep changing, right? There's a new form of cybercrime or cyber fraud every single day. Also, technology is advancing, right? So how do we as a team keep abreast of these latest technologies to mitigate risk as well, right? So these are ways that we look at, as an organization, especially because being a financial app, it is important that you're safe and secure, and that starts from enabling processes or having processes in place from the beginning, right?
Perfect. I think you've raised such an important and pertinent point, that training and awareness and keeping abreast, not just as the CEO of the organization or the CTO of the organization, but that really has to translate to each and every member.
That's absolutely.
I mean, I can recall from my experience at Wipro, we used to have constant training modules. There would be email circulars that would come in, which would then educate us on all the different standards that were taking shape.
Yes, that's really important, and we take that seriously because there are multiple touch points with our end customers, right? So it's always important that everyone is up to speed and aware of what sort of cyber crimes or cyber frauds are possible these days, right? Especially with the kinds of emails or links that you can get nowadays. It's very deceiving, and trainings play a very important part.
Perfect. We'll come back to you for the question side. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your views. I'd now like to invite Varun. Varun Grover is a seasoned professional in the field of brand safety and protection, currently leading the business unit of brand safety at Mfilterit. With an impressive track record, Varun has garnered over 20 years of experience working with prestigious organizations such as NDTV, GfK Nielsen, BestNet, and Trident Group. Varun's expertise lies in brand safety, brand protection, business analysis, consumer insights, strategy, business planning, and execution. Notably, he's also successfully collaborated with esteemed clients like HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, RBL, ITC, Amazon, and Flipkart, and providing them with strategic guidance and innovative solutions to safeguard their brands. It's very, very important and pertinent because the brand image is continuously linked with cyber crimes. So Varun, the first question to you, what has been the economic impact of cyber fraud on businesses and individuals? How has it impacted customer trust, the brand image itself, the financial stability, and the overall economic growth in recent years? Varun, over to you.
Thank you, Praveen, for this generous introduction. Thank you very much. Now coming to the question on the cyber security and cyber fraud itself. So usually whenever I am there on these discussions, even to our family, friends, and otherwise also. So last month I was on Doordarshan on the similar topic of cyber safety. So my first point is on cyber security, when these fraudsters are getting successful, it is because of the fear and greed what we as an individual are having. The two major trigger points for any cyber fraud would be fear or it is your greed, because of which you are falling prey to these fraudsters. And of course, government is working on these. We are also training people around this. Brands are also taking care of these aspects. Now they are also getting aware of these kind of trends and they want to also address this. But as an individual, it is our responsibility and duty also, not only for ourselves, but around the people around us also to train them. As Sai has mentioned, it is not only about the top. It is you have to take down the approach, and it has to be a top-down approach where from top you are starting it. And that's not only on the professional front, but on the personal front also. We have to train the people around us. Only then we will be able to take care of these cyber frauds. Latest report by Interpol itself has given the numbers that there is a 788% growth in high risk registration cases. Within India, if you will talk about then CERT, which is eventually the body which is taking care of these frauds. And if any fraud is happening with the banks or any other brand, so they are reporting these cases to CERT itself. As an individual also, I can report my complaint with the CERT. CERT has handled 13 lakh plus cases only in 2022. So last year, the volume was such a humongous volume. And I just want to point out here is the number of cases being registered with CERT will not even be 10% of what actually is happening. So CERT has officially reported that they have handled 13 lakh cases. The quantum of cases could be much higher because people are not approaching them, and rather they will not be aware that there is a platform where you can approach and you can file your cases also. Quantity of frauds. So that was 13 lakh. Now the volume, value denomination of this is 2,500 plus crore rupees have been defrauded from these 13 lakh cases only. So that is the kind of chunk what these fraudsters are managing. And of course, when that kind of huge money is getting siphoned off from the genuine users to these fraudsters, then their trust will always get a dent. So cyber fraud, cyber issues, what we are facing today. And like there is a idiom in Hindi, tu dal dal mein paat paat. So these fraudsters are going one step ahead of you, and you have to think from that perspective, and you have to train your guys that yes, of course, don't fall prey of these fear and greed things. Of course, consumer trust has been shattered because of these activities, and especially the government of India and our Prime Minister Modi ji, who is leading the digital growth and the digital growth of India, what we are looking for. So when these kind of things does happen, then there's a dent on the digital growth image of India also. So it's not only about the brand, it is about our country itself and the whole ecosystem what we are running. And though we are very proud that we are lending the UPI system and all these interfaces to the international community also, but if such thing will happen, and UPI is actually, even as per the parliamentary committee report on finance itself, the major chunk of financial fraud is happening through UPI. Of course, these are the reported numbers. So 47% plus cases have been reported only through UPI, the cases of fraud which had happened. So there is a gap which we have to cover, and we have to ensure that as a ecosystem, as a custodian of this whole system and process itself. So government is having their own responsibility, organizations, companies are having their own responsibility, and we as an individual too have the responsibility that we should train our people, we should let them know what is happening, and it has to start from top and it has to go till the bottom. And as you have mentioned earlier also, the elderly people, so they have been left out from whole this process. There could be few exceptions who are taking care of these aspects. But then the elderly people are getting prey to this, may not be because of greed, but maybe because of fear itself also. So KYC frauds, you are getting the phishing links, phishing emails, all those things are happening with you. And recently, what we have seen, you may get the calls on the sextortions also with elderly people. See, you, me, maybe as a young generation, if we are getting, we know that, okay, this is the modus operandi they are using. But when the elderly people are getting those sextortion calls, they themselves will not be aware what had happened with them. And if they can blackmail them, rather, I have told my father also, they don't fall prey to any such calls. And I know you are my father and you are not having any interest in such activities. So even if someone will call you and take a screenshot of your call with them, so don't worry, we will not believe that. We are with you and we know what kind of person you are. So these kind of things are happening, and we have to train our people in the closed group also. Maybe at the organization level also, we have to go for that. And of course, since digital lending is all about the digital ecosystem itself, so those aspects, and especially when people are getting defrauded, so on those digital lending, then they will be, of course, be skeptical about it. But we have to gain their trust, and as an organizations, we have to take care of the aspect that if any such phishing attacks are happening, so proactively, how can we handle them? So it should not be a reactive approach; it should be a proactive approach. So
Perfect.
that's my take on this.
Perfect. No, several important points, Varun. And I think the core element is technology is always that double-edged sword.
Yes.
While it enables convenience, it enables speed. Today, I need to order from a Kirana store. I can just go on to an app. The person will come and deliver it. All the payments are done. I need food. I need groceries. I need clothes. I need anything under the roof today, right? From electronics to anything. I mean, all the apps and all the marketplaces are available to me. But at the same time, it takes that one instance of a fraud or a risk, to really decimate the kind of confidence and trust that an individual would have. So I think very rightly put. I think that fear and greed. I think if people can avoid that, I think the runway for technology, UPI adoption, digital lending, I think that story is completely on. I think as long as we can avoid these bad players and bad actors on the way, I think the India growth story will continue. I think
Right.
that to me would be the big takeaway. No, thank you so much for sharing your views, and I will come back to you with more
Sure.
questions subsequently as well. Now, I'd like to introduce Dr. Prateek Ghosh. Dr. Prateek Ghosh is VP Digital Transformation at SCS Tech. He's responsible for hand-holding clients to integrate the adoption of digital technology in their business models and to improve process and operations for better insights and innovations within the industry. He has about 27 years of international experience working in the US, UK, Russia, Turkey, and was with a leading German engineering company for a decade. He has a doctoral degree in management covering research areas like smart grid, ITIS, IoT, data analytics, and operational intelligence. He's also certified ISO 9001-2008 auditor and is experienced in CMI implementations. At SCS, Dr. Ghosh is responsible for blending people, technology, process, and products for companies to kickstart their digital transformation journey and keeping the momentum going. Dr. Prateek, I'd like to ask you, what are the ethical considerations associated with using advanced technologies like AI in cyber fraud prevention?
Thanks a lot, Praveen, for the introduction. If I take the discussion forward from what Sai said and Varun said, and you also ended up saying that technology is a double-edged sword. So when we come to AI and AI/ML-based cyber fraud prevention, the same data in a wrong hand can also be used in a different kind of model to find out the fear and threat which Varun was talking about that we can. So they can create biases in the data set to find out who are the potential people on whom the fear or a threat or something like this can be activated on. So for that reason, AI for cyber fraud prevention becomes much more difficult task, and people who are into it should make sure that all these biasness, all this bias in the fairness has to be maintained, that the data set is not being used or the data set is not susceptible to a potential where it can be used in a wrong way. Second thing that comes, the data. Wherever there is a huge amount of data, the next thing people try is a cybersecurity attack to get that data set. Okay, the data set from credit card companies or various lending organizations are sold in the market also, which is known to us. But getting hacked data like the AIMS attack or power sector attack, where they get the data of how much billing is there, what is the buying potential of that person, or what is the health potential of that company. So these concerns, when in the wrong hand, they can be used. So if somebody has a health concern, a fraudster can say, this kind of hospital has this kind of treatment, and we will get you this treatment done, and you have to pay only say X amount. And that person is already in a troublesome position, and he will end up spending. Like Varun said, he has that fear in him already to take care of that weight. Next thing that comes for AI/ML is it's an automated thing. So who is responsible and transparency and accountability perspective? If a human does a mistake, he's signing, he's giving an attendance, he's going on a system and signing for the day, and he's accountable if he does a mistake. If a system automatically does a mistake, whom do you catch as an accountable person? It's a system and it's a program at the end of the day. So do you catch the bank? Do you catch the company who did the programming? So here the DPDP acts or GDPR acts and things like these will come into picture, that who is accountable, who is responsible for these things. Fourth consent that comes is like Varun said, or I think Sai said, that consent-based things are coming into the market now. So there should be a consent-based opting out option also for the people. That today I want to opt out. I don't want my data to be used in an AI/ML based thing. I just want to have it in a safe and secure paper-based thing or a digital platform where it is safe and not being used. So the consent to opt out should also be there in that case. And fifth, I would say the most important is the privacy concern. So when data is in AI/ML, like I started by saying, it's a double-edged sword like you. What is the privacy concerns that is there? If somebody gets my data, he has access to all the things that I can do, my spending capacity, my purchases, my credits, my bank loans, everything is known to that person. So how do we maintain this privacy? So from these 5-6 things, if we design very well at the very beginning of a AI/ML based tool or a cyber fraud prevention system, is a highest amount. So like this, we say in projects, 80% of the time should be spent on designing a project and 20% on implementation. But we end up doing the other way around. We start a project and we say, dekhi jayegi, let us start and we'll keep working on it. So we need to work very sincerely on those 80% to design a robust system before implementing it.
No, perfect. Very rightly put, sir. I think if you design it correctly, agar wo neev pakki hogi, that is how the building will be then
right.
Strong and powerful. That is the way forward. And I totally agree with you on the consent. I mean, so often you just press the I agree button, right? I mean, we don't even read the terms and conditions. I mean, if it is a paper document, at least you actually go through each and every line. You try to understand it. When it's online, I don't know if it's behavioral or if a person is in a hurry. You just scroll down. You don't want to read everything and just say I agree and you give your consent. I think the other very important point that you raised, I think consent only for so I think even in AA they're trying to do that. Consent only for that session or for the purpose for which data needs to be accessed. So I think that could be a very, very important thing. I don't know what your view is on that. Allow data access only for that particular session or for that particular purpose for which it has been granted. Would love to know from your thoughts on that.
See, data is being accessed for only particular session, but at the back end, it is getting stored.
Stored, yeah.
So you gave consent for that, but you don't know whether somebody is going to misuse that stored data someday later. So that is there. That's why I'm saying that there are positives of technology and there are negatives of the same technology. So like they say in a legal book, how to do some crime and how to save from yourself from that crime is also in that same book.
Right.
And today, I think hacking or these things much more, means the youth today are much more getting interest in programming for hacking and things than doing the ethical side of it.
Wow, 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 wow. That is, well, that is, if it's happening that way, then that's also a very scary phenomenon, right?
That's scary.
Right. And so your thoughts on what does the data protection bill say from the storage standpoint? You know, you've taken consent, you've got the data from the customer standpoint. What is the data protection bill saying on that end, you know, or from the storage standpoint?
There are certain things like which says data retention and deletion policies are there. So
Right.
it says that for particular kind of data, so how many years that data will be saved into the system,
Correct.
and how it will be deleted, whether the end user will be also told that it is getting deleted from their system. So these kind of things are already in place in that bill. How it is implemented and the way it is implemented is to be seen, because it's fairly a new thing in the Indian market today. So in terms of lot of lawyers and a lot of people are getting into this thing to get into the DPDP things and how to help the companies get into it. So retention and deletion is something which can be a very important thing for this point of view.
Perfect. I know from experience, you know, I was working in the derivatives industry. So I saw the global financial crisis, and post that you had the Dodd-Frank Act and the EMIR regulation and the GDPR coming in. So those implementations were very, very stringent, you know, and the kind of nuances and the data protection that came in. I'm sure even in India, we will see all of those elements getting in. I think the truth is the most significant thing will be the implementation. I think the letter and the law will state all the different purposes, but how it gets implemented on ground is going to be the most important element.
Right.
Thank you so much for sharing your views, sir. I'll come back with more questions. Sai, I just wanted to ask you, you know, what recent trends and advancements in cyber fraud prevention have had the most significant impact on strategies employed to counter cybercrimes? Sai?
Yeah. There are a couple of interesting things that we at Decimal are also working on, right? I'd like to talk about something that we're working on here or experimenting with. It's called behavioral biometrics, wherein what we do is with sort of the data you have, there's sort of a digital persona of an individual that's created, and any sort of deviation from this persona, right, gets flagged as a fraudulent activity, right? So this is something that we're experimenting with. It's one of the more advanced techniques, because once you know or you have a digital persona, there's like a set process, right? Like, you know, you're expecting a certain behavior, but if you tend to see any deviations, that starts getting flagged, right? So that is something that we're working on. Another thing that we implemented from scratch, and which is actually very widely being adopted nowadays, is the zero trust architecture, they call it. It basically stems from the concept of never trust, always verify. Right, it comes from there, right? So we ensure right from there's continuous auth that happens to like stricter access controls, and like some stuff like multi-factor authentication wherever possible, right? Like nowadays you cannot even restrict to two-factor authentication. It has to go into like a more multi-fold kind of a thing. Like, you put in your PIN code, you have biometric, but then you introduce an OTP as well, right? Wherever possible. So a sort of a more multi-factor authentication approach is what is being looked at. And of course, we've all been talking about AI and ML, right? So as of today, we have a lot of these sophisticated models that introduce identification of frauds, even during your KYC process, to say the least, right? So those have sort of I won't say they're something new or they're a trend with respect to mitigating cyber fraud, but it's sort of, we're at a stage where that's become a norm, right? You have to do these things, right? Depend on these ML algorithms. Of course, these algorithms are getting better by the day in identifying patterns, identifying frauds. So yeah, these are things that we actively work on. These are some of the emerging trends that I personally am interested in. So yeah.
I just find that idea of a digital persona very, very interesting. Would love to. I mean, without revealing too many trade secrets, I would love to understand what goes behind that. If you can share more thoughts on that.
Yes, I mean, at least in the use case of decimal, right? So we're
Okay.
looking at micro investments only, right? And with this approach, with an approach of say micro investments, like say the average investment amount per day, say for a user is around 70 to 80 rupees, in that ballpark, just via micro investments. Any spike, right, in this amount, sort of is a red flag to be looked at, rechecked, re-verified wherever possible. So these are the smaller things. I mean, very pertinent to the decimal use case, but something that we're working on, looking for more applications across the entire implementation, right? But this is something that we definitely thought would sort of make sense, because by now you're aware of what an average investment amount is, and if you tend to suddenly see a spike or a dip all of a sudden, these are things that you generally, a spike is what is more alarming, and that is why we use something like a digital persona, sort of a behavioral biometric, to say the least, to come up with that persona for that individual.
Wonderful. And zero trust. So what are you seeing on multi-factor authentication? I know two-factor is still common now, but
Yeah.
how does multi-factor happen?
Multi-factor is not something extremely drastic or new, to say the least. It's just about adding another step of verification wherever possible, right, and wherever applicable. It's just that like I said, it stems from a concept of never trust, always verify, right? So you want to be sure at every single point in time, even if it is someone wanting to do something as simple as reset their PIN, right? You never know whose hand that phone is in, right? So you would like to implement a more robust strategy of a multi-factor authentication, wherein not just like putting in your PIN or a biometric at that point in time, but ensuring that you send an OTP to the email that probably only the user has access to at that point in time. So introducing things like these wherever possible, right, and applicable is sort of where the entire concept of a multi-factor authentication, because two-factor authentication also may not cut it every single time, because just we're reaching a stage wherein there are so many advancements with respect to cybercrime, so you just want to be as safe as possible.
Perfect. Thank you, Sai. I'll come back to you with more questions. Varun, just wanted to quickly ask you, how do you see the future of digital identity management in digital lending and its impact on cyber fraud prevention shaping up?
See, digital identity management is a very key factor when you have to be in the digital lending business. But then there are challenges also, especially as we have discussed in this whole session itself, that technology is a double-edged sword. And that is what people are also doing it. So fraudsters, they are using the loopholes in the system itself. Even at the organization level, we are not having the adequate information about our customers. So poor KYCs, verifications could be there. Technology has given the affordable AI tools also. So you can create a whole persona of an individual from the AI tools. Accessible VPNs are there. So the people are spoofing the digital identities itself and then creating those fake identities to get the lending from the organizations itself. So how you can overcome that? So that could be one of the challenges which is there. So traditionally, when identity management was there, not only for the digital lending, but otherwise also the approaches were that, okay, we will first go with the two factors, what a person has and what he knows. But now, as Sai has also mentioned, that with technology, we can create those digital personas also. And at mFilter, it also we use the open source intelligence to create these personas. May not be at the individual level. You are creating for your customers. We are creating for the fraudsters, or try to identify the potential fraudsters and their behaviors there itself. I give you a very simple example. I'm having a phone number, or I bought a new SIM, get a new PAN card issued for myself. So what will be CIBIL score for you? How will you judge my identity, and how will you rate me? Because when I'm having a new PAN card altogether, it will be, you cannot have any historical trends of my financial transactions. And for me, either you have to say 0 or 1. So I'm not in between anywhere itself. So these kind of things now these fraudsters are doing. So what we can do? Can we have some digital footprint or the digital persona, as I has mentioned, about that individual through the open source itself? If I'm having a mobile number, if I'm having an email ID, though we know that PAN card is new, but at least these two are the facts through which there are many artifacts which can be collected only from the open source itself. So those can be incorporated into the digital identities of the individuals. Of course, there is another gap which we always discussed, is about the linkages of your devices and your SIM. Can you do the linkages between these two? If you are using the same phone from SIM card, or it is a virtual SIM if you are using, if the mapping is there with the device itself, then those spoofings can be taken care of. So all these things, as a learned or maybe within the ecosystem, since we are into these businesses, so we have to take care of those aspects. We have to introduce those safety norms also into our digital lending spaces. So open source can be a very good tool, but then there are some conventional methods which have to be used while giving any kind of loans or any kind of financial assistance or any kind of lendings to the customers through the digital platforms. So I believe, yes, digital identity has to be managed properly. Maybe we have to use some conventional, some modern methods, maybe top layered with other additional aspects of OSINT or digital personas, as I has mentioned.
I totally agree on the OSINT bit, Varun. I can tell you from experience, there's lots of tools to envisage the anti-money laundering trails,
right?
Legal data analysis, so the code data itself is getting digitized. So all of those elements can be definitely brought into, building that digital persona. I love that concept, building a digital persona and really building that trail, I'll definitely come back to you with more questions.
Sure.
Dr. Prateek, what are the key differences in cyber fraud challenges faced by traditional banking when compared to digital lending platforms?
Yeah, Praveen. So the way the banks operate in digital world and a traditional bank, which is a physical brick and mortar bank, is very different. So if we start from the very beginning, where we talk about, say, customer onboarding process or the authentication, a traditional bank will normally have a very slow process of documentation, KYC, physical verification of Aadhaar, PAN card, and all. And then they store them as a photocopy of those things in their documentation shelf and all, which are less accessible to a fraudster because they are in physical form and kept in the bank's premises. Where in digital lending, they most often they will say phone number based OTP coming from an Aadhaar authentication, and you are onboarded. So first, that the data accessibility between a traditional bank and a non-traditional digital bank is very easy for a digital environment where the data is readily available for everybody to do a cyber attack on. So in its term, if you see, the data security is already there in traditional bank because they have invested in a customer database, which is a paper-based database, and on computers which are their premise computer. It is not on cloud or not on open environment or web environment. that it is getting. So their servers are in their data centers and they are using. So for example, if it is a HDFC or SBI, their data stays in their own data center. What we face is the customers facing website, which is for us, but their data is still residing in their premise. Third is the transaction volume. So when it comes to transaction volumes, most of the digital lending or the micro environment, even like what Sai is trying, and he said also that they operate on small amount of money which they want from people. So the amount is small. So when the amount is small, it becomes quite important for a fraudster to play with it, because it's a small amount. They can, like Varun said, have a new PAN card, and if you're opening a very small account, nobody will think it's a fraud. And they are playing on that game only. They are playing in a very small range. They are not trying to do a fraud of larger scale, but small amount every day. So that is their modus operandi, that at the end of the day, 20 people working together on small amount and making a good amount at the end. Whereas in traditional bank, if you go, the financial services are complex. So if you want a loan, a lot of processes are there, a lot of collateral needs to be given, maybe introduced by some other bank holder, or you are already having a relation with the bank for 5 years, 6 years. So they know you, they know the physical persona of yours, not the digital persona of yours. So that is how they are operating. So the lending mechanism, lending models are also very slow there. Then when you come to the access to the customer data, these banks normally will share their data to these credit bureaus. So at one level with the CIBIL score or credit bureaus, they are safeguarding the customers' records and other things. Whereas in digital lending, you may not always look into the CIBIL score because you're not looking at that big an amount. So that is another difference there between a traditional and a standard digital banking. Then when it comes to regulatory environment also, the regulatory framework for most of the brick and mortar banks are much more stringent than a digital bank today. So digital banks means Sai can correct me and Varun can correct me, but I think digital lending platforms will have much lower regulatory requirement than a traditional bank. And to follow those requirements, the traditional banks will have a lot of audits, checks and balances in place, which in turn will save their customers as well as the customer records. So those are certain things I would say is difference between a traditional and a digital.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Pradeep. No, even on the digital side, the guidelines have come in now, and RBI has recognized with all the digital lending players coming into picture. So they obviously need to protect the consumer interest. So I can, yes. So the regulation is now keeping pace with the way the technology always comes first, and then the regulation follows. So that's what's happening from the industry standard. I mean, I do have that question. I mean, even in paper-based contracts, frauds can happen. Signatures and documentation. I think one of the ideas behind digital was you trust the source. You're taking straight from the PAN website, or you're validating straight from the Aadhaar website. So how do you see that? Because in paper-based transactions, I sense the opportunity for fraud is even bigger.
See, in paper-based or in a traditional bank, to take out those papers, the person has to have access to those papers in there. So he has to have inside there. But in the digital world, a hacker can do it without having an access to it. So that difference is there. And what happens in paper-based things is, like if you see in most of the government schemes, there were ghost players there. Person did not, the person was not alive. No person by that name was there, but papers were submitted and people were getting money for those schemes out there. So those things, of course, will get stopped when it comes to digital, because biometric, face-based things are coming. So, like we say, there are advantages of digital sites, and disadvantages also. Absolutely. So, if it is a biometric or face-based recognition followed by Aadhaar KYC and a OTP coming to your registered mobile, is secured in a way. So it stops schemes which can be frauded. But when it comes to banking, banks are much more organized. They send you a KYC every year. So if somebody is not alive, so that person is not coming for a KYC. so that
Got it.
bank account gets stopped.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, my point was more from the inception itself. I think the fraud can happen right at the inception stage, in a paper-based contract. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much,
this,
sir.
Like they say, lock and key is for good people.
Right. Sai, just a quick question to you. How to effectively mitigate risks associated with cybercrimes?
See, I mean, at least from a financial institutional standpoint, right? Like, again, what's something that even we have tried to implement from day one. I think there are three very major pillars that play a very pivotal part in this. According to me, it's processes. Secondly, it's the technology, and thirdly, it's the people, right? So let me elaborate a little on these. So processes meaning you need to establish, like I said, processes, very strict processes in place from day one, right? Or day zero, right, if possible. With risk assessment, how you report incidents, what's the turnaround time for incident reporting, and how you deal with all of this, right? And along with that, the processes also go hand in hand with upskilling or training your employees for ensuring that they're up to date with the latest trends in cybercrime and cyber fraud. But how that eventually translates is, right, when you have these kind of processes in place, what that helps you do is choose the right technology, right, that enables you to build on these processes or build a very a stable and a robust framework from day one, right? And that having that is important. And we touched upon a few examples in the past, right? Like I spoke about zero trust architecture, for example, right? So or a data localization perspective, right, from day one, right? How do you go about, or these decisions heavily affect what technology you choose, how it's implemented, right? And lastly, having a very skilled and a team that is willing to upgrade every now and then, because these trends just keep changing every day, right? You have to keep abreast with all of these things. So having the people part of this, this three pillar kind of an approach is very important, because you need to be updated, like I said, and updated and aware of the latest technologies to mitigate, but also with what is new in with respect to trends of cybercrime and cyber fraud. So yeah, for me, and what we've definitely tried to implement in the decimal ecosystem is like this three pillar approach. I'm sure it could be like a template that many people could harp on if they're starting up, right? Especially, it's important that this sort of approach is taken up from day one.
Perfect. I can't imagine the significance of people. You can implement all the tech, you can implement all the processes, but eventually it's people who drive those processes and technology. So people are at the heart of any implementation. Totally agree with you on that. Varun, just a quick question to you. On what strategies do financial institutions adopt to protect sensitive customer data, especially during KYC processes?
See, as Dr. Prateek has also mentioned, and Sai was also having the same point, eventually the data privacy and the data protection, maybe at organization level, you are having those processes in place. But what your employees are doing, even while the cyber attacks are happening or these phishing things are happening, how they start? They create phishing links, they create fake websites. Very simple cases, you can get a Netflix ka 699 wala package in 199 rupees. I can offer you that. So what will you do? Okay, it's fine, 199 rupees. I'm saving 500 rupees, give me that. But how will you pay the money? That person is not going to collect that money by coming at your doorstep and collecting the cash. He will share a link that you have to enter your financial data entries into this link. You have to give that money. At that time, it will be only 199 rupees, which will be debited from your credit card and all, but you have voluntarily given your data to him, that fraudster, by giving those entries into on his or her website. So same applies to us also in the organizations. Maybe we are having that right intention, but you don't know how it is going to be happened and layered, and how secured it is at the employees level also. If you are outsourcing your all these processes to third party vendors also, so those data can be leaked, those data can be compromised also. So KYC is one part. So KYC we have to do. Another thing which we always talk about is not only KYCs, it could be a negative registry also. So as an brands, individuals, we are not willing to share data amongst ourselves. Government danda karti hai, we are ready. Okay, we'll share the data with the government. But government ke paas bhi, they are having their own limitations, or maybe the process is very slow there. But we know, if I am a brand, if something has happened with me or my customer, I know the guy who has done that. I'm having all details with him. Why can't I share it with other brand? If that same guy is getting onboarded to another company who has done the fraud with another company itself earlier, why can't I share that data in a central repository where you can do the lookup and check what has had happened with that number or that PAN card or that with email ID itself? If it belongs to a fraudster who has done that fraud with one company, he or she is having the tendency to do with other companies also. So KYC privacy is one part. Another part is how you can mitigate the risk at the organization level also. So I always recommend this and always vouch for that. We have to create a central negative repository registry where any and every organization can do a lookup, and you have to be part of that consortium itself. You have to be part of that. You have to share your data there. That these are only the blacklisted ones. Only the ones who have done fraud with you or your customers. So only that information need to be shared there, which other can also then take advantage that, okay, these are the numbers, email IDs of the profiles of the fraudsters. And we have to be very careful about when we onboard them. And as I have said about, if as a customer, I'm going to a platform, then on the KYC processes, the protection of my data can be handled again, as Prateek sir has also mentioned. For the bigger banks or the brick and mortar banks, it is on their own servers. But for the lending, smaller organizations which are coming up, it is the privacy which has to be there. Even in the bigger banks also, it could be some other ways. Their data hacks could be there. So many data is available on dark web, deep web. You can go there and outsource it. So everything is available. So those on VAPT perspective has to be, vulnerabilities have to be tested and checked. But otherwise also for smaller organizations, it is a responsibility again from the top till the bottom. We have to ensure that we are training our people and protecting the data, what we are getting from the consumers.
Perfect, perfect. I really like the idea of that central repository of all the negative, incidents and negative. So I think that is the only way you will then recognize and build a central model, and then you can take preventive actions. So what's happened in one place or one person or what's happened to one organization can then be mitigated and avoided at another in another kind of scenario. I really like that idea. I'm conscious of time. Dr. Prateek, last word to you, last thoughts to you. How have data privacy regulations impacted digital lending practices and cyber fraud prevention efforts? Over to you, sir.
Yeah. So like we started by saying that this GDPR of European Union and this California Consumer Protection Act, these are much older act, and DPDP is fairly new. So what we need to have is to have stricter data handling and storage policies in place. So how the data is being handled, how it is being used, and how it is being stored. So if it is being stored in a cloud, the VAPT things, or certain certifications, certain audits on a regular basis should be there to make sure that no other vulnerabilities are there or the latest hacks are not working on it. The trusted sources, the government has something called trusted portal source for government organizations. So something similar should be there for even the private organization, that what are the trusted vendors, what are the trusted OEMs, what are the trusted software that we can use. So when we work with the government projects, they ask us for a trusted portal registration for all our OEMs. So similar thing for a private may also help eventually, that all are trusted source provider. Then, like I said, enhanced consumer consent as well as removal of the consent mechanism should be there in place. And along with that, it should be also there that how many years of data retention is there. So DPDP bill implementation should at least take care of these things. Another point is most of these bills take care is data minimization. What I mean by that is that if I require only 2 or 3 data item for a particular loan or lending, I don't need to have a complete KYC with all details of that person. So whatever is minimum required by the lender or for that digital bank, we should only get access to that much part of the data so that the data minimized is there and he can't use the entire set of data. So in case of a fraud, the entire data is not lost. Then data portability. So if I'm changing my banks or a digital lender, how it will be ported from one organization to another? Will it stay in a central repository which all the banks are using, or they will port? And if they are porting, what are the mechanism that the portability is safe? So from tomorrow, say from size decibel system, somebody is going to another thing, and there is a portability rule that he can shift all the money from here to there. Then both his organization and other organizations should have some portability mechanism in these DPDP rules that, okay, my data is getting securely transferred from one organization to another. Then, of course, impact on the third party sharing. So no organization should share data with third party, which, okay, we get it in the dark web. It is something we can't stop, but at least third party sharing should be stopped in such way, because if I get a call from one credit card company offering me something or one loan company, next 3 days I'm getting from various companies. So everybody knows that I'm looking for something. I look for one car, every car company is then selling me a car. So that third party sharing of data, how to minimize it or stop it to the complete extent is very important. And then, of course, your cybersecurity data breach reports and everything should be maintained by these companies. So SAI should have a, say, 3-month quarterly or a 6-monthly audit and maintain his reports that what kind of cyber hacks he had, how he mitigated it, what preventive measures he took. So tomorrow, if somebody comes, a new client comes, he can show that these are the documents I took care that your data is safe. And every 3 months or every 6 months, I make sure that your data is safe with me. So if we have some kind of regular audits, it gives a very good comfort to the onboarding clients also. And if they are openly placed in your websites, then people can go through it, read it, get the audit trail and see that, okay, this company is safe for me. So plus geographic consideration, of course, we have to see. So different states in India have different rules and regulations which are pertaining to that particular state. So one policy may not work all across the 29 states of ours. So what are the differences and how we take care of those things? So these are certain points I would say are very important to be taken care in terms of the privacy policies as well as data privacy regulations.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those views, sir. Sai, Varun, any closing thoughts from your end?
I mean, there's a lot of key takeaway from what everyone here has said, right? Like some very important points by Prateek sir and Varun sir. I'm sure there's a lot for the audience that's watching to learn and pick up right from here. So I mean, that's kudos to you as well for organizing this platform for for this kind of awareness, because it's important, right? At the end of the day. So I mean, my closing thoughts are just that it was a great platform to to discuss these things that are really important and will affect every financial institution in the coming future.
Perfect. Very rightly said, Sai. Varun, any thoughts from your end?
Yes. My you can say the tagline always is brand safety is brand's responsibility. So you cannot shed your responsibility that it is consumers' fault that they have fall prey to this phishing, wishing, or cyber attack. So it is our responsibility also as a brand that we have to educate our consumers about those things. And as a consumer, don't fall prey to fear or greed. So these are the two, you can say, the points I want to mention. So brands are responsible for the safety of their consumers. Similarly, on the consumer part, don't fall prey to any fear or any greed. So these are the two major things which I want to point out. And thank you very much for inviting us for this session. And as I has mentioned, it is evident for everyone who's there, and not only for us, maybe the people around us also, we should educate them about all these aspects.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so
you.
much, Varun. I think, I've learned a lot today, and some of my big takeaways, I think processes are very, very important. The right kind of audits and certifications, the use of technology, including OSINT and elements of AI models, the elements of regulation that's coming in, including the Personal Data Protection Bill, consent-based architecture for data sharing, data minimization. I thought that was a very, very pertinent and relevant point. And finally, I think people, and then the digital persona, that will stick with me. I think at the heart of any privacy and cybercrime is people and humans. So people and that digital persona, how we educate them, how we protect them, how we embrace them as this new digitization. I think the runway for digitization is just endless. That will continue. So we need to constantly educate and empower people and the digital persona. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. Really, really appreciate that. And until next time, thank you. And it's bye-bye for now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.